Energy Matters podcast. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I am your host Kassem Alokla from Texas A&M University Society of Petroleum Engineers Student Chapter, TAMU-SPE. The aim of this podcast is to discuss and explore some specific topics about the energy industry in general and the oil and gas in specific, while covering some related topics in environment, economics, policy, and many more.
All right. Howdy, everyone, and welcome to the Energy Matters podcast, where we delve into pivotal discussions shaping the future of the energy industry. I'm your host, Kassem Alokla, and today we have the honor of speaking with Jason Pigott, the president and the CEO of Vital Energy. Thank you, Jason, for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. I know you are a really busy person, but dedicating the time for Texas A&M and the students is a really appreciated service.
Thank you for having me, Kassem. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks. All right, before starting with the discussion, I'm going to introduce our speaker. Jason Pigott joined Laredo Petroleum as president and a member of the board of directors in May 2019 and was named the CEO in October 2018. Prior to joining the company, Mr. Pigott built 2 decades of expertise in the energy industry. Most recently, he served as the executive vice president for Chesapeake Energy in operations and technical services, where he led all activities around drilling, completions, digital, supply chain, and land. Before Chesapeake, Mr. Pigott held various positions at Anadarko Petroleum, mainly focusing on developing unconventional assets in the Eagle Ford, Haynesville, and the Delaware Basin, and various tight sand plays in East Texas. Mr. Pigott holds a Bachelor of Science in Petroleum Engineering from Texas A&M University and an MBA from the University of North Carolina School of Business. Thank you again, Jace. Now we can start with our discussion. All right, so if you want to start with your early career in education, could you please share with us your journey starting from Texas A&M University and how did that interest you in the industry in general and led you to entering the E&P industry?
Yeah, thanks. Again, my family was in the oil and gas industry. My dad worked for Amerada Hess as a foreman for offshore. I was good at math, and so I knew I wanted to go into engineering, but I got a summer job working on a offshore platform to help pay for school. And so that was how I kind of got into petroleum. So entered the Department of Petroleum Engineering. And just loved it. I love this industry. I love the school. I love what I do every day. And I've never had a day where I regretted what I'm doing when I wake up in the morning. So at A&M, I guess it's been 27 years since I graduated from A&M. I think what you learn at A&M is really how to work hard. We work as a team, and we also learn to work as a team and like with your class projects and things like that. It's really important for your career to be able to work well with others, but also work hard. I think you also get a good appreciation for the fundamentals. It was really interesting when I came out of school. Again, when I was in school, we learned about conventional reservoirs that had permeability and high porosity. And my first job was in tight gas fields in East Texas, where none of what I learned in school was really applicable, but I always had the fundamentals to rely on. And again, the environment is just changing faster than ever. So I think just getting a good understanding of the fundamentals and learning how to work hard are pivotal to any path you may take in your career in the industry.
That's pretty cool. So you took courses in unconventionals, right?
Yeah, there were some, but not, again, it was not the focus when I was at school. I mean, there was one class on it. So it was not, again, I had to build my own playbook when I got out into the world. I mean, the only horizontal drilling was in the Austin Chalk, where they were drilling through natural fractures. So all that was new when I was in school. So again, the whole world has completely changed since then.
Definitely. That's cool. So you, after finishing your petroleum engineering degree, you joined the industry, and then later on you pursue your MBA at University of Northern Carolina. So how did your MBA impacted your background in petroleum engineering and help you also in your positions at the different companies?
Yeah, the MBA, again, I was a little bit of a unicorn. So I was 43 when I went into the MBA program. At the time, I was the executive vice president of the operations for Chesapeake. My goal was I wanted to be a CEO. But my whole background was operations, drilling, completing wells, doing reservoir engineering, and I never had a good opportunity to understand like the finance part of it. And so that was what drove me, is just to understand, as I became CEO, I would be dealing with challenges I never had to make decisions on my own. So when I took over, so I finished the MBA program, and it was about 12 months later that I was offered the CEO job at Laredo at the time, which has now become Vital Energy. And since taking over, we've refinanced our bonds twice. We've done an equity deal overnight. We've used equity as part of probably 7 of our 12 transactions, actually probably 9 of our 12 transactions. And so you have to just understand, okay, do I give stock? Do I pay cash? Do I go finance with bonds? Do I use my RBL, which is like our credit card? And so all that MBA training I went through was pivotal. And again, I wouldn't be as successful as I am today without it. And my advice is, again, some students get it like right after school. I think as long as I time it to when you think you're going to use those skills, because it's really easy to forget something if you don't practice with it. And so I got my MBA while doing, I was a remote learning MBA, but was able to get that while doing my job and then immediately put it to use. So I think the timing really worked out well for it.
So it depends like on the circumstances of like the individual, whether it is like whether they want to continue directly their MBA or just like go for the industry, work for like a few years and then get the MBA.
Right. I'd suggest, again, going to work, and because you're not like, again, many companies, you start out as a production engineer or something like that, drilling engineer, and you're not going to be worried about finance and, what bond yields are and things like that. So you'll just forget it maybe if you get it too early. So, and there's so many remote and distance learning programs. A&M's got an awesome one. The North Carolina one was just one that was available to me when I was ready for it. And so there's great programs out there that you can do remote. It's a lot of work when you're doing it, and you got a day job and you got to do an MBA, but I'd say get some experience before you do it, but it's kind of up to you and what your plans for your life are.
That's pretty cool. All right. Last question in this section. During your education at Texas A&M or during your MBA, did you get like any mentor who really impacted and influenced your future career, like in terms of an advice, guidance, knowledge, education?
Yeah, I've always had, again, someone in my career. Usually it was my manager that I was working for. They help guide you and make decisions. And then that was early on in my career at Union Pacific. And then at Anadarko, I had a guy named Alan Sanders who, I don't know, he noticed me and just took me under his wing. And even though he would move to different areas across the company, we'd meet regularly. So it's always good to have someone that's invested in you and is supporting you, and they can help you in your career. And again, there's a lot of knowledge out there that we don't have as young engineers. So I think it's really important to find a mentor that you connect with.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with this. I think mentorship is really important, especially in our industry, because there are a lot of maybe misconceptions and misunderstanding about the industry. Some people, maybe some students won't know what's waiting for them in this industry. So having a mentor will really impact, especially like I'm talking about students, because we have like a mentorship program at Texas A&M SPE's chapter. So it connects students to the industry, and it's really important for them. So I appreciate you sharing this.
Well, and I still have them today. I mean, I'm a young CEO, so I have other CEOs at other companies that mentor me today. And when I have a problem, I can say, "Hey, how did you deal with this when it was going on with your board? How did you negotiate this when you did an acquisition in the past?" So it's something that you should have. There's always someone more experienced than you, and so I even have it today, and it's really valuable to me.
Exactly. Yeah, it also agree with that. Thank you. All right. Now let's move to your experiences. You have a lot of experience in the industry in different companies. Let's focus maybe first on Anadarko. So can you discuss your professional development within the industry, particularly through your roles at Anadarko Petroleum and the challenges and responsibilities you encountered as the Executive Vice President of Operations and Technical Service?
Yeah, good. And I'll start just a hair before Anadarko. Out of school, I went to work for Pennzoil as a production engineer in Carthage, Texas. They were bought by Devon a couple of years into school, and I went to Union Pacific and continued as a production engineer, and then they were bought by Anadarko. So one of the things in our industry, you may be moving around, but then I was at Anadarko for almost 16 years. Had a great time there. Again, production engineer at other companies, but then got into reservoir engineering. It was the thing that I thought I would like the least and the path that I wanted to avoid when I was in school, but it's actually something that I really excelled at. At Anadarko, the reservoir engineers were really responsible for the economics of the wells, and as we talked about, and we're blazing a trail on unconventional wells and how to do economics. There weren't really reservoir simulators that were designed for tight gas like we have today, so we were having to do things by analogies and on spreadsheets, but I really got into it and excelled at reservoir engineering. It was a higher responsibility there. Different companies that has a different value, but again, you're proposing the wells, you're creating the budget for the company, and so did well at it. I also at that time began to embrace just statistics and dove into them, and like instead of just presenting, a well with a fixed dollar amount and a fixed EUR for that well, I would look at probabilities and say, okay, the cost of drilling the well could be from X to Y. The reserves based on all the statistics could be from A to Z. And so these two things together give us a range of outcomes for wells rather than just having this deterministic answer. And so that set me apart at the company. And it kind of got me noticed. So I think that's one of the things I'd give advice for students is think, what separates you or differentiates you from a lot of your peers when you get into that work environment. Are you the same as everybody else, or do you have something that can help differentiate you a little bit? So for me, that was statistics. I went on to go into planning, where I created for the whole southern half of the company, like a rig schedule where every well on the rig schedule would have a distribution. And instead of just having one budget, again, we could start to see what are the range of outcomes for a budget. And then my career just really started to accelerate when I was doing something differential. So I went from reservoir engineering all over Texas. So I did what's now the Midland Basin and Delaware Basin, the Haynesville and Carthage, outside of Carthage and in Louisiana. Did some South Texas in the Eagle Ford for a while and was working exploration. Went to Algeria, to London to work Algeria for a year. And it was that's where I actually got to use some of my school where things had permeability and porosity, and got that experience, and then came back to Anadarko, and then eventually on to Chesapeake as again, two different jobs at Chesapeake. I was responsible for what was called the Southern Division there, which was Barnett, Eagle Ford, the Mid-Continent, which was huge for them at the time, and the Haynesville. So running half the company for a couple of years. And then I went into what was kind of this operations support job. I got into lean manufacturing. So thinking about like, how can we manufacture a well as efficiently as possible, and think of, we have a factory that we run every single day. Our factory just isn't in one spot, and things are coming in from all different places. So another one of those things that just differentiated me a little bit is I thought about what is the most efficient way to drill a well, and just embrace that as well as the digital environment.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I really like the idea of you like joining different disciplines, for example, manufacturing, also like expanding your experiences and knowledge by taking statistic courses. So this is really important advice for all students as well, especially now, like companies are looking for more diversified kind of knowledge in the students, especially like taking courses in statistics, data science, machine learning, new energy. So this is also an important advice. Thank you for sharing this. Talking about now Chesapeake Energy, so what key leadership lessons from your tenure at the company have influenced your approach as a CEO of Vital Energy? Because it was directly Chesapeake, then Laredo Petroleum, right?
Correct. Going to Chesapeake was the most difficult challenge I've ever had to take on in my career. When I look back on it, I was not ready for the job I was given. because a lot of it is you're following Aubrey McClendon, an industry leader, paved the way for shale as we know it today, who had a very different way of doing things. It was like go buy acreage, buy all the acreage you can, and own a play. And so when you're having to follow that mentality, but it drove the company kind of into the ground because you would buy so much acreage, you would have to run a ton of rigs to keep from losing the acreage as it was expiring. And so it just like anytime when gas price went down, it would just you just didn't have the cash flow to sustain it, and you're always borrowing money. So going into Chesapeake, the hardest part was changing the culture and trying to bring what I learned. Anadarko was really good at like capital efficiency and planning, which were the opposite of what Chesapeake was doing. So you had to come in and like completely change the culture from one that was based on acquisitions and growing your footprint to operational excellence and drilling wells as cheaply as you possibly can. We also had Carl Icahn on the board, members of his team on the board. So you're coming in, having to turn the company around with an activist on your board. I mean, I could write a book about all the things we went through to that. But again, I could write a book on the challenges we faced. But it's one of the things you learn that the courage and comfort can't coexist together. And so if you want to do big things, you just got to remain uncomfortable. And so to your question, coming in, what does that mean for Laredo? Well, Laredo is actually the opposite of it. I was following a founder again and had to try to create another culture change, but Laredo was really good operationally, but it hadn't acquired any acreage in a long time in our footprint. We just kind of stayed stagnant on that footprint, and everybody was focused on these cube developments and infill drilling, and you could have 40 wells in a section. But when it proved out that spacing was too tight, all of a sudden the company was out of inventory. And so we had to come in and say, okay, keep the operations good. We don't have to work on that. But now I got to go back to what Chesapeake was doing well, which is let's go buy some land and do some acquisitions, which were a new muscle for me and required, again, this whole culture change. And again, that's the hardest part of a change in a company is getting the culture changed, and you have to make hard decisions. I mean, the strength that I had was being able, when people saw what we did at Chesapeake, you create these followers that believe in what you're doing and want to be a part of it. And so when I came here, I had, again, so the day I resigned, I had 5 people say, I want to go with you. We're going. And so there were some people you have to let go that are not going to be on the bus with you. But when you have people saying, hey, I want to go do what you're doing there and having a greater impact, it was really reassuring for me and exciting. But I think those things at Chesapeake immediately we had to do here at Vital too.
Wow, that's amazing. So you left Chesapeake, you left Anadarko after the acquisition by Oxy, right?
No, I was there. So for Anadarko, I was actually working on the integration. Before the Oxy one, after Kerr-McGee. So yeah, right before Oxy. I think it was a couple years after I left.
Okay.
More than that. But I mean, I was at Chesapeake 6 years, and then in June I'll be at Laredo/Vital for 5 years.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. Thank you so much for sharing the importance of the previous experiences that led you to be the CEO at Vital Energy. And let's now talk about Vital Energy, which is the focus of our podcast today. Okay, what makes Vital Energy what it is now?
Yeah, I think it's this transformation that I was talking about. Our acreage position was on the east side of the Midland Basin. It was a third oil, gas, and NGL. And gas prices were not great, so we were kind of zero to actually paying for our gas to get rid of it. NGL pricing wasn't high, so we were only making money on a third of our product stream, which was the oil. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, we were out of inventory because it had kind of been put too closely together. So we had to immediately pivot the strategy of the company and go this completely different direction, which was let's go acquire oil-weighted properties. Again, we want to have low break evens, so that when oil price goes to $60, you can keep on drilling and they're not drilling uneconomic wells, which meant we wanted to get, again, by volume, 50 to 55% oil. And we had to go acquire it because we couldn't just stay on the position we had. And that's been, again, really successful for us. I mean, we've had to punch above our weight for most of the transactions we've done. But Pioneer sold us some acreage early on just west of us. And then we did a deal in Howard County, which is to the north of us, where we got a foothold in there. And then went through COVID. I mean, that's another challenge. Brand new CEO, go through COVID, everything shut down. But somehow during COVID, we managed to do this transaction that was, I mean, we were a $200 million market cap company, and we were going to buy some properties for over $700 million. And we had to sell interest in some of our existing properties for $400 million. And so we made it all work. So somehow it came together at the end of COVID. And we just launched that was the first thing that really changed the company for us. And we now had really good high quality wells to go drill. We bought them when oil was $65 or so, and then oil ran to $100. So, and it was just like the best thing we could have ever done. So timing was great. And then the next year was a tougher year. A lot of companies that weren't in the Permian were trying to get into the Permian. They were just the prices that things were going for were just really high. And so we were kind of shut out for about a year because people were overpaying. They were paying a premium.
2021.
There were bigger prices than we could, and we were still a $600 million company. So for us to go do a $2 billion transaction really wasn't possible.
Mm-hmm.
So we switched to what we call small ball, which is, hey, let's do more transactions, or try to do 3 transactions, but do three $300 million transactions. We can use a little bit of stock with each of those and some cash. And if we can do 3 in a year, then we'll have done $1 billion worth of transactions. And in that year, it would be the biggest year for us that we'd ever had. And that transition was like amazing for us. We ended up doing 5 transactions last year.
Wow.
For a total of $1.7 billion. So last year alone, we nearly doubled the size of our company. And it's just a real differentiator for us. We're just kind of hungrier than a lot of the other companies out there. And we're just aggressive at chasing these smaller companies that weren't as competitive. So a huge success for us in that transition.
That's amazing. Like, you came as the CEO in 2018, and then COVID happened, and it was really like challenging, but at the end, like, you were able to sustain and bring the company to success. So kudos to you.
We say it often to my team, again, ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. And because we never had it easy, it was always hard. We just had to outwork everyone around us. But again, it's been successful. We now, again, started with almost no inventory. We now have 10 years of inventory, and we've passed up on total oil production a lot of our peers at the time. So it just being persistent and sticking to it has paid big dividends for us.
Amazing. So how does Vital Energy plan to enhance its portfolio and profitability by integrating the new assets that you were talking about and focusing on capital efficiency in order to develop assets and impact lives mainly in a positive way, especially with what's happening now in the energy industry?
I think for us, we've created a playbook when we talk about enhancing the portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And to do these transactions. I mean, we've done 12 now since I've started. And so what we try to do is break everything that needs to be done with a transaction down, and everybody knows their role and what their part in the transaction is supposed to be. So we actually get things transitioned fairly quickly with all the work we did last year. I mean, we're drilling the wells, we're operating the wells, no one's doing it for us. We just have some accounting stuff that takes a little bit longer to get transitioned of it. But, for us, we try to stay ready so that we don't ever have to get ready. And we stick by the playbook. And so that's helped with these transitions. We also, I think, embrace digital technology. When I started with the company, I wanted to be the most aggressive at embracing the digital environment because the oil and gas industry is so far behind everybody else. I believed if we could do that, it would set us apart. And it's also done really well. I mean, we have some submersible pumps that are running via AI in the cloud, and no one else in the industry really has anything like that. So it's, again, helping us outperform every quarter. So those are things I think that we do differently. And as we acquire new properties, we bring our technology and apply it on the new areas, and it helps get more production out of those. So that's been a real win for us. When we think about the energy transition, again, it's in our name. That's why we went from Laredo Petroleum to Vital Energy. The reason is that we think the energy we provide is vital to the world, and we've got it, again, plastered all over this office that, our mission is to energize human potential. So if you think about everything in your life that makes you a better person, at some point it requires energy. This podcast is powered by energy. The food you eat requires energy to grow it and harvest it. The computers that the students do their work on require energy. So again, it's very difficult for anyone in the world to achieve their goals or aspirations if they don't have access to energy, and the world's just going to need more of it, not less. So again, it's in our name as a company that energy is important to the world, and we need to do it in as a sustainable way as possible.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Next is mainly because the Permian Basin is like the largest basin in US, and it's very important to talk about it. And I think it's very close to your heart as well. How does Vital Energy leverage the Permian Basin hydrocarbon productivity from its mission of enhancing the energy access and sustainability, including the impact of its recent acquisition, for this strategy?
Again, we love being in the Permian Basin. Again, there's a saying that goes, the best place to find new oil and gas is where you've already found oil and gas. And so we keep seeing that in the Permian over and over again. There's always a new zone or a new target. We announced on our earnings call last week that we had taken some cores and some wells, and they proved up for us some new zones that added 60 wells in one area, and then just using technology and lower cost opened up another 120 wells in another area. So that's what we love about Permian, is just if you can continue to get costs down, new zones become economic, or it's stacked in so many ways and it comes and goes. There'll be a zone that no one else is drilling that you go in and test, and can be very productive for you. So that's really why we love this area. There's also so many operators out there, still good opportunities for us to grow and acquire other companies, or again, add wells organically. So we love being in the Permian Basin. It's a great spot for us.
All right, perfect. So talking about other operators and competition, and what do you think about the mergers that are happening right now in the industry? What's the main impact on the industry, especially for small companies? So as a CEO, how do you look into these kind of mergers?
Yeah, I think they're great for the industry.
Mhm.
I mean, when you get scale, there's just more efficiencies with being bigger as a company. You can optimize your infrastructure, your pipelines, the way that you drill and complete wells. If can stay in one spot with a drilling rig or a completion crew, it increases your efficiencies out there. So all the acquisitions make sense. We've been talking about it for a long time. My philosophy has been we have a lot of these private equity backed companies as well. So my thought has been, again, once all the privates are bought, the publics are buying each other, and you're starting to see that play out now. So I think it's good. I think it's also good for a company like ours. Again, we're a smaller company compared to those others, but there's companies like Oxy that have announced that they're going to be divesting of assets. So a company like ours has an opportunity for them or anybody else out there that's doing some of these consolidations, because now that you have a better core, there's just going to be assets maybe on the fringe of your operations that don't make sense anymore. And so we've made our living scooping up some of those assets and adding them into our portfolio. So I think it's good for the industry overall, but also good for a company like ours to go potentially pick up some of those assets.
Wow, that's cool. Thanks for sharing this. All right, we started talking about energy transition and Vital Energy changing the name into energy, because the services and also the products that Vital Energy is providing are for the good of the population. So how do you envision the future of our industry, the oil and gas industry? especially after this like global trend of shifting to sustainability? And how is the company, which is Vital Energy, positioning itself into like evolving into different newer technologies? Let's say, for example, geothermal energy, especially now it's very trending. Maybe hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, and other kind of newer technologies, like how the company will approach such kind of technologies.
Yeah, again, as you mentioned, there's lots of talk out there. Again, how do we get greener? How do we electrify more? How do we become more sustainable? I think some of these things are, again, some aspirational sandcastles that are getting washed away by the waves of reality. As I mentioned, everything we do requires power, and it requires more power. Again, there's 8 billion people on the planet now. I think they're going to use more and more power and not less. So I think for our industry and where we are as a company, there's the green projects just seem to be keeping up with the incremental demand, and they're not really displacing the core hydrocarbon production. So I think, again, anyone that's out there in school today is going to have a long career in this industry, and I think it's going to be harder to find oil and gas in the future than it is today. I mean, we had the shale revolution and things changed, and you would have just counties and counties of one formation that you could go drill. Those are being drilled up. And so now, like some of these things we're seeing in the Permian, you got to go find this zone that everybody's skipped over and make it economic versus, again, these plays that would just go on for across multiple counties. So it's going to be harder to find it in the future. I think we're going to need more talent, not less, to find the next tranche of energy.
Mhm. I totally agree with that. We already started talking about the future of industry, but now, like, if you want to focus on the academia, which is like students who are uh, gonna be the future leaders in this industry. So, first of all, what advice do you have for these students? And because, of course, considering the dynamic nature of the industry, and also like your experience, since you also graduated from this university, and most of our audience are Texas A&M students. So, of course, they will look forward to people like you because you are like an idol for us. So, what advice do you have for all these students, like as a motivation, in terms of like schoolwork, education, experience, internships, advice, general advice? So, yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it and then come back if I missed anything.
Yeah.
I think this is a great time to be in school. I graduated in 1997 when class sizes were more like they are today. Again, because oil price was low, not because we were going green. That meant there's a limited supply of graduates, and there's just going to be a time where there's not enough of students graduating to fill the needs. I was 45 when I took over as CEO of Vital Energy, so one of the younger CEOs of a public company. And I think a large part of my success, like there just weren't people in my age group when I was at Anadarko, and so I got into manager jobs probably earlier than the group of kids that graduated before me, and so there just weren't as many people in my window, and so you're kind of coming off of that, 4 or 5 years ago, twice or 3 times the enrollment there may be today. And now there's going to be a smaller group to pick from as you progress in your career. So I think that just creates a lot more upward mobility and potential acceleration for you in your career. When I think about areas to focus, again, as I mentioned, like we're all in on AI and digital. So if you're in school today, like I would try, if I have electives or can take extra classes, I would really understand that part of the business. When I came out of school, I had a goal to do like 1 workover a week, and if I did 1 a week, I'd do 52 a year, and I was going to be twice as productive of any peer I had out there. Today, with analytics, I mentioned we're using AI on submersible pumps. If I'm a production engineer and know how pumps work, but I can also write code, I can now go optimize every ESP we have running in the field based on this, again, supportive AI or programming and just the way they work. Because I can now send, again, signals to a pump and say, speed up, slow down, apply back pressure on the pump, and optimize them all at one time versus a guy that would normally go by each pump and make a lap every day and maybe hit 12 of them. We now can optimize 100 of them at any instant. So I think that skill set is really important in understanding how you can now change 100 wells or 1,000 wells versus just one at a time. So that's important. I think also just figure out what your strengths are and what you're good at. Like my kids are all in college now. We send them through this aptitude testing. And that's where they will compare your skills at something versus everybody else that's taken the test. And like, for example, my son, he's in mechanical engineering right now. They told him that he was good at seeing things in 3D. So he wants to create the plans for like nuclear submarines. But he could see things in 3D, and they said, well, you'd be great at architecture, radiology, or mechanical engineering, and you will do better in those careers than the average person because you see things better in 3D than the average person. So I would think about what do you do better than the average person, and really make that a strength for you in your career and see what sets apart. Like I say, I'm into AI and machine learning and all that, but you may be terrible at coding. You hate other languages, and that's not going to be your thing. But think about, how can I use AI to help me more effective in my job or give me more time back or something like that. But just really think about like what you're great at and will differentiate you, and you'll get recognized in your career if you do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Now we move to the last question, which is basically related to your position now. So what are the main ingredients to make a leader in the energy sector? If you want to focus maybe like on the skill sets needed to make like a great leader in the energy industry.
Yeah. I'll give you again what's made me successful, and it's back to the same thing. Like what areas help you stand out? Like I like to think big, and I think that's something that's helped me in my career. Is I'm curious and being curious. Just again having to come into a company like Chesapeake or Laredo and say we're going this way, but now we're going this way, and here's why we're going this way, because it's going to be important for us as a company. We're dead if we stay where we are. So just having that ability to like think big and say, I'm now CEO of a $200 million company, but we're going to be a $5 billion company. And no one's going to believe that you're going to be a $5 billion company until you've actually done 12 deals and you're almost a $5 billion company. And now they believe. So just having that, for me, just having a ability to think big and see where something could go, even though it may be hard to see it. But when you get there, again, you've made the believers. And so we've got a lot of excitement in our company today because we had that vision and we're achieving it. And then being curious and asking why, not to be mean about why you ask why, but like asking questions on what prevents us from using AI. Why can't we use it to help us in our days and jobs? Why does that work that way? And what happened if we put a bigger frac job on this well instead of the current size? So being curious, I think, has also really helped me out. And just, I can't overemphasize, like having the right people around you that make you better. I mean, my company's been successful because I've recruited people that work for me that I can let them go do their job and don't have to micromanage them or worry that they're going to do something good, but they're also aligned with me on where we're going as a company. If you've got someone that doesn't share that with you, it's just going to cause issues. But just having the right people around you, I think, is one of the most important. It's the most important thing you can do as a leader of a company like this size.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Actually, I got a message from someone who's Dr. Blessing came. He told me to tell you that there is still time to take one of his classes.
That's good. There's a good story there that we don't have time for, but it's good. Yeah.
All right. I think this is the end of our podcast. Thank you so much, Mr. Pigott, for all the insights. And your career is so motivating and so encouraging for students like us. On behalf of TAMU-SPE, I would really like to thank you and extend my deepest gratitude for your time and insights, and of course, unwavering commitment to driving the innovation and sustainability into the oil and gas industry. And hopefully, we see you very soon at Texas A&M. And we wish you all the best, and for the company Vital Energy, all the best in achieving more and more success for the future. So thank you again, and hope to see you very soon.
Well, thank you very much for having me in Gig'em.
Thank you again.